underrated states we've ever been to, from the beautiful mountains to the incredible lakes to the awesome wildlife, some of the coolest national parks that we've ever been to. It's one place that you're definitely going to want to add to your bucket list.
This is our ultimate South Dakota road trip itinerary and guide. If you guys are new here, we're the Lover's Passport. We talk all about national park guides, adventure itineraries, and fun things to do around the US and beyond. How long should you guys spend on your road trip in South Dakota? So we were there for a full week, full 7 days. We went all the way from Sioux Falls to Rapid City, and so that was a good amount of time if you wanted to do a full cross-state road trip. If you guys wanted something a little bit more bang for your buck, if you just had a little bit less time, we would say focus on the Rapid City area and do a road trip around the Black Hills and Badlands National Park region. That's going to get you the most highlights in the shortest amount of time. In which case you would only really need like 3 to 4 days to explore that region to get the highlights. If you really want to spend your time taking in all the different hikes available in the region, then like 5-6 days would be a great amount of time for that area as well.
We are out here in Good Earth State Park. As you can hear, the wildlife are going crazy out here right now. This spot is very, very important to the Native American culture here. It's right on the border of Minnesota, South Dakota, and Iowa. And apparently South Dakota bought the land to help protect a lot of the artifacts that were here. There were more bison bones found here and more Native American things found here than a lot of other places in South Dakota. So cool spot to start the road trip.
We're just finishing up our time here at Good Earth State Park. We're gonna go and head on over to Falls State Park. It's apparently very beautiful from what we have seen, and we're super excited to take you guys along for the next 6 days while we travel throughout South Dakota.
Falls Park was one of the most beautiful spots on the east side of South Dakota. It is really cool because it is located directly in Sioux Falls. After we finished visiting Falls Park, we drove about an hour and a half over to the Lewis and Clark Recreation Area, which is where we were staying for the evening.
We are right outside of our hotel, and we are at the Lewis and Clark Recreation Area. So we just rented some e-bikes and we've been riding them around this beautiful lake over here. You can also rent a sailboat, go out for a little ride, go swimming, hang out on the beach. There's tons of RV parks and lots of lodging here too if you just want to camp, and it's a really beautiful area. We're going to take you guys just down the street and to a beautiful sunset spot at the MERIDIAN Bridge. So we made it here to the MERIDIAN Bridge. It's a beautiful spot for sunset over here in the Lewis and Clark Recreation Area. Fun fact, it is on the border of both South Dakota and Nebraska. So this side that we're on, South Dakota, the other side over there is Nebraska. So we went to go see the bridge. We're on said bridge.
And we are now in Nebraska. Apparently it's the border.
Whoops. We didn't know that. So if you want to make an impromptu stop into Nebraska, it's right there. But yeah, it's a really beautiful bridge. I believe it was built in the early 1920s. And of course, they have rebuilt it right over there. There's Discovery Bridge. Now this is just for foot traffic over here and authorized vehicles, but beautiful little area. Lots of people out walking about and hiking and biking along the trail.
So after we left the lake, we had about a 4-hour drive across the state of South Dakota to get all the way to the west side of South Dakota. This is where most of the gems are, and especially one of our favorite parts is we got to Badlands National Park. On the way over to Badlands National Park, there's a nice little midway spot. It's actually called the Corn Palace. It's a crazy big place that you guys can walk into, completely built out of corn. When we were there, they are actually replacing the corn, so they only leave it up there for a couple of weeks before they have to replace it with new corn, and they're always doing new murals. The whole town is kind of centered around this one little area. There's basketball games there, all kinds of really interesting stuff.
All right, G, what do you think of this Corn Palace?
There's a lot of corn. A lot of corn.
Worth the stop?
Pretty impressive though.
I think yes. If
very South Dakota. Everyone from South Dakota told us to come here because you have to.
All right, off we go. Good morning. We are out here now in Badlands. We drove 4 hours. We're gonna be bringing you around here for the next 2 days, doing a bunch of the hikes, seeing a sunrise and a sunset, before continuing on to Rapid City and the Black Hills. So we're excited to check off another national park. And we are here with Nikki. I'm sure you saw her in our Firefall video. She's gonna be joining us. She's actually from South Dakota, so being taken around by a local.
So Badlands National Park is probably one of the most underrated national parks that we've ever been to. What we love so much about this one is how different it was. Just like when we visited Bryce Canyon, there's almost no other national park like it. When we visited Badlands, the sheer amount of Badlands in this over 200,000 acre area is incredible.
We're here at the end of the Notch Trail. It's about a 3/4 mile trail in the park. It is apparently the best trail to do, especially if you only have one day in Badlands National Park. It takes you up through the little canyon here, and you get to go up this fun little rope ladder, and you get these beautiful views. Make sure to bring lots of water, wear some sturdy hiking shoes here because it is quite slippery, just the nature of the rock here, and bring lots of sun protection, sunscreen, hats, UPF shirts, etc. just because it gets really hot in the summer. It can get up in the 90s and 100s, so just make sure you're really prepared, and download your maps ahead of time so you don't get lost, because apparently it is very easy to get lost here too. And we're gonna head out to the next trail.
If you guys are just stopping through South Dakota, you really only need one day to see all of the highlights in Badlands. But if you do want to hit like every single thing possible off your South Dakota Badlands bucket list, then you'll want to give yourself 2 days minimum.
The main thing to see in Badlands National Park is to be there for the sunrises and the sunsets. That's definitely the most beautiful part of the area, and we have a few that we would recommend seeing. So if you're looking for a sunrise, there's 2 spots that we absolutely loved.
So one of the best sunrise spots is Big Badlands Overlook, and it is one of the best viewpoints in the entire park regardless of sunrise or sunset. It's right next to the entrance of the park, and it is stunning. You get vast Badlands for days with no obstructed views, so it's a really nice area if you're really looking to see Badlands.
The other sunrise spot that we'd highly recommend is checking out Panoramic Point. You can see a full 180-degree view of the Badlands. It is a little bit further into the national park, so if you're looking for a quick sunrise, you don't want to drive the windy road all the way in, we recommend doing the Big Badlands Overlook. Now let's get into some sunsets. Sunsets are all going to be on the opposite side, and there's really 2 spots that you're going to want to see it that are about a 5-minute drive away from each other.
The most popular one, and the one we recommend the most, is the Pinnacles Overlook. There's a massive parking lot because it gets really busy. That's probably the busiest part of the park, actually.
We saw some really cool wildlife there. The Badlands go on for days, and you get to see the sunset directly over the horizon. And right next to that area was called Hay Butte, and that was another area that we absolutely loved for sunset. Just depends on what kind of type of view you have. Pinnacles Overlook looks directly at the sun, where Hay Butte focuses on the side, and you get a completely different angle and different lighting on the Badlands. We loved both, and we saw sunset from both because they were actually right next to each other.
Good morning. We are now here on day 4. We got up, did some astrophotography last night. Photos turned out sick. We got up for sunrise. It was extremely cloudy, kind of a bummer. Now we're going to grab breakfast at Wall Drug.
We made it to Wall Drug.
All right, G, what do you think?
Got my 5-cent coffee. This place is huge. Like, I did not think it would be this big. It feels like you're walking into like Diagon Alley in Harry Potter, but it smells like a saddlery or like a horseback riding store. So we'll see how it goes.
Look at how big these are.
I got their free ice water, and apparently they give out like free ice water, like 5,000 cups a day or something ridiculous. It's wild.
All right, did it meet your expectations, G?
I don't know if I had expectations, but they were like not at all what I was expecting. There's so much to do. There's a chapel, western wear store, camping store, bookstore, belt buckles, and literally you can find anything in there. And the cafe was really good. The pancakes were awesome. 5-cent coffee, definitely worth it.
Coffee is 5 cents.
Okay,
can you believe it is 5 cents?
No, not at all.
5 cents.
Biggest tourist trap in the world, probably, but like it's kind of fun to walk around. Would still recommend it on your trip to South Dakota, especially it's like 10 minutes away from Badlands, so it's on your way.
Easy stop for sure.
Easy stop.
Goodbye, Wall Drug.
Another really awesome spot when you're in the Black Hills region of South Dakota is checking out Spearfish Canyon. This canyon is a really nice drive. Probably takes you about 1 to 2 hours to drive the full thing if you weren't going to stop. But there's lots of hidden gems along the way, whether you're looking for waterfalls to hike to just drive up to, or even some secret little swimming holes along the way.
We just finished hanging out here at
Devil's Bathtub.
It was so much fun. We were both saying this is probably one of our favorite hikes that we've done today. First one was good. It was kind of like a nice starter. Second one was a pretty big waterfall, but
They progressively got better.
not much to do. This one, there were slides. It's a great spot for the family. It's a fun little hike. We did like 10 river crossings, so highly recommend it. We're gonna be cruising back now. We made it up for our last hike of the day. This is called the Community Cave. It has a gorgeous waterfall. I'm sure you can hear it hanging out right over here. And it's
some
massive.
Yeah, there's some sport climbs up in here, which are really fun. It's really hard to find. It is not marked. There's no restrooms. It's not like an organized facility, so I really wouldn't recommend it unless you are very prepared and advanced hiker. It's like straight up a couple hundred feet right off the highway. We just spoke with a family and they said like the other family they were coming up with got lost. We originally got lost, so like be careful. Please.
Anyway, that is it for exploring the Black Hills. Tomorrow we are going to have a super early wake-up call. We're going to be heading out to the tallest point in South Dakota.
So we'll see you there at Custer State Park.
So we made our way over to what became our most favorite part of our entire South Dakota road trip, which was the Custer State Park region.
So Custer State Park completely blew us away. It is a state park, but in our opinion, it almost could be a national park if it really wanted to. It reminded us a lot of Pinnacles National Park in California, as well as it had so much to do, from hiking trails to rock climbing, incredible vistas, cool drives through these amazing rock tunnels, and there's tons of wildlife to see there as well.
So we did 2 main hikes around the park. The most notable and famous hike was the Black Elk Peak Trail. This one is a little bit longer, harder in terms of elevation gain. We'll link the all trails down below for you guys, but it's an incredible viewpoint, full 360 views all the way around. It's also the highest point east of the Rocky Mountains, so really nice panoramic views up there. It will take you a couple hours to complete. We started really early so we could catch up the view for sunrise, and sometimes you'll get greeted with a cloud inversion up there too if you're lucky. So definitely recommend that hike. That was probably our favorite hike of the whole trip.
So we made it to the top of Black Elk Peak. We're currently in the Hardy Peak Lookout Tower. It's very windy, in case you can't tell by our audio. We started hiking around 4 a.m. and got up here right as the sun was rising around 5:30. The trail there's like tons of different ways to get up here. We took a trail that was about 6.4 miles. My watch clocked about 3.5 coming up here, but make sure to give yourself a lot of time to come up. It's just more of a long hike than a lot of steep elevation gain. There's some switchbacks, but it's really gradual for the mileage. Yeah, it's really beautiful, really great for sunrise and sunset. You get these 360 panorama views of all the Black Hills area, and would highly recommend hiking.
And then the second hike that we really loved doing was the Cathedral Spires Trail. So these kind of are in the same area, but the Cathedral Spires Trail will take you like in the middle of the spires, so you're walking among them and you can really see the vastness of the pinnacles around you.
We're back here at Custer State Park. We were here this morning hiking Black Elk Peak, and then right now we're hiking the Cathedral Spire Trail. It's 2.3 miles out and back, and it's rated as strenuous, but I honestly would say it's more like moderate beginner, just with about 500 feet of elevation gain, but it's pretty gradual. It's absolutely beautiful. It takes you in the middle of all of these spires, whereas Black Elk takes you above all of them and kind of on the ridge line next to them. So if you want to be like immersed in the spires, I would say definitely come and do this hike. The end of the trail doesn't really lead to a view, like it just kind of stops and there's a tree line blocking everything. So really what you're going to be looking for if you want to do this trail is the spires in the middle of the hike. You honestly get really good views like the first half mile, 0.75 miles. So if you just wanted a quick little dip your toes into Custer State Park, that's another good option. You don't have to do the full thing. It also does loop over to Little Devil's Tower, which we're going to do tomorrow morning for sunrise, and we'll take you along with us then. But otherwise, bring lots of water, lots of sunscreen. It's really hot out here in the summer. It's been about 90 to 100 degrees the past couple of days out here. And we highly recommend Custer State Park, you guys. This is a beautiful area. We'd put it up there with Badlands National Park, and we're having a really great time. So if you're into hiking, rock climbing, anything like that, this is definitely a spot to come.
That trail was a lot shorter than Black Elk Peak. You can actually add them on to each other, so you can connect them and make them one giant loop. It just kind of depends on how much hiking you want to do that day. That would be a pretty big, like 9 to 12 mile day probably.
I would almost say to do Cathedral Spire during the middle of the day. Part of the Needles Highway, which is this incredible, beautiful drive through the entire area of Custer State Park. After a long day of exploring in Custer State Park, we were driving back to our hotel and we saw an incredible sunset at Cascade Lake. Looked like a great spot where you can go kayaking, canoeing, hang out with the family if you wanted to have lunch and get out of the busyness of Custer State Park. But it's a perfect stop on the way back to our hotel, where most of the hotels were in the city. And right next to the Black Hills was one of the most well-known places in the entire US, and we had to visit. Even though it was a little touristy, we were still pretty excited to finally go.
We made it here to Mount Rushmore. This is probably one of the most famous spots you've seen in a national treasure. All over the place. There's tons of advertisements about it, and it is just as touristy as you would assume. Tons of people here. Parking's about $10. You're probably only gonna spend around 30 minutes here. If you want it all to yourself and a little bit quieter, make sure you get here for sunrise. If you guys do come for sunrise, it gets this beautiful pink glow. We weren't here for sunrise because we were hiking Black Elk Peak, which is more epic in my opinion. But if you guys do have this on your radar, it is all in the same vicinity right next to Custer. Next up, we're going to be checking out Crazy Horse, which is another version of this, but it's going to be the Native American version, and it's still in works.
Next up, we visited Crazy Horse. This is very similar to Mount Rushmore, although it's not completed. It's been in construction for many years. It's kind of a controversial area because it's privately owned. There's a whole bunch of history that goes into Crazy Horse's monument and memorial, especially when it comes to Native American history. There's some controversy around it because it's still not completed and it's kind of being pushed commercially, and it's lost its significance of it being a really notable landmark for Native Americans. And so it's kind of overrated in our opinion. It kind of seems like a money grab for tourists. So
you can drive up and see Crazy Horse from the outside. What we thought was really crazy was it was $10, and that's it for parking at Mount Rushmore. You can see this. There were tons and tons of really cool things that you can read about the states as well as how it was formed. And then at Crazy Horse, it was $35 to get there, and it wasn't complete. They did a really cool job with describing the Native American history inside. There's like a really cool college that they're developing. There's
in a
lot
museum.
They're like trying to be a really cool space. But we thought it was a little crazy if you wanted to just go and see the memorial that they were going to charge you so much.
And then they were going to charge you on top of it if you wanted to get closer. Like, you still have to take like a little shuttle to get really close to the monument. And since it's like not a public landmark, it's, yeah, I don't know. Kind of overrated. Wouldn't recommend. But that's
you guys
just our
can go
thoughts.
and check it out if you would like, but we were not super impressed is when we got to Mount Rushmore. It was incredible to be able to see that awesome monument.
On our last day, we had to check out two of South Dakota's most famous areas as well. So we checked out Jewel Cave Monument and Wind Cave National Park.
Today we're going to be taking you on a Jewel Cave tour, and we're also going to be checking out the national park as well. So excited to bring you guys along.
So we just finished up our cave tour here, and it was really cool. It was about an hour and a half long. It cost $6 per person to enter for the tour, but there is no entrance fee. And we'd highly recommend doing it. It's the coolest, I mean, it's the only way you can really see the caves. Make sure you make reservations online in advance. It's the only way you're gonna guarantee entry, because they do have walk-ups, but they'll put a sign up if they're all filled. So they have 3 different kinds of cave tours. The one we just did, then they have the historic one, which takes you about 2 miles away from here to the historic entrance, and then they have that adventurous, crawling, like cave spelunking one. So choose your own adventure. So we just finished up our tour here at Wind Cave National Park. We did the natural entrance tour. There's a few different ways you can go. This one's the most standard one. It's often rated as the best one from blogs. It took us about an hour and a half to go all the way through, and it was super informative. We personally liked Jewel Cave better. Don't tell anyone that, but you see I have a few jackets on. It's 55 degrees down there, pretty much year round. And so you're gonna wanna make sure you bring a jacket. You can't bring any bags like Jewel Cave or anything else, just your keys, your phone, your camera, and yourself. So have a good time. If we were to narrow it down to choose between Wind Cave and Jewel Cave, like I said, we'd probably choose Jewel Cave. But if you're trying to hit all the national parks, and of course, check this off your bucket list too. They're like a 20-minute, 30-minute drive from each other. So if you're already in the Black Hills area, definitely recommend coming here and checking it out.
Both of these were incredible. Like Giselle was saying, one is a national monument and one is a national park. But in our opinion, we thought Jewel Cave National Monument was a little bit more bang for your buck. Wind Cave National Park does have the biggest amount of boxwood in the entire world, which is really cool. But it specifies just in that one type. Whereas when you go to Jewel Cave National Monument, there's so much to see there. It's a much bigger cave. It's a little bit different of an experience, and it wasn't as busy as when we went to Wind Caves National Park. So we had a better experience exploring that cave.
They're super similar experiences, and they both do cost money, and for both of them, you do have to go on a national park tour in order to actually go into the caves. If we had to choose one, we would have chosen just Jewel Cave over Wind Cave National Park, but they're both really cool to see.
And if you really want an adventure, in Jewel Cave National Park, they also have one of the most intense cave tours in the entire world. Out front, they have this tiny little box that you have to squeeze through, and if you can squeeze through that, then you're able to go on the tour. But if you can't, then they won't even let you sign up for the tour.
It's the head that I would be worried about. So Jewel Cave does like a really adventurous cave tour, and you have to crawl through that in order to be able to go on it, and they only offer it on the weekends. But it's one of apparently the most strenuous cave tours you can do in the whole national park system. So if you want to do that, make sure you can crawl through this little tiny thing outside the visitor center first.
That is it for our ultimate South Dakota road trip itinerary and guide. We hope you guys love this video. If you missed our previous South Dakota video on Badlands National Park, we really go into depth on that, so we'll link it up here for you guys.
If you guys want to see more adventures, we have a bunch of YouTube videos coming out from our adventures out in Europe to the Middle East, all the way back here into the States, so be on the lookout for a bunch of videos coming soon.
And with that, we'll see you on the next adventure.